Welcome back to the Big Water Podcast. We're going to do it a little different this time. We always are switching things up on you, trying to keep you honest, also a little bit entertained, a little bit educated. We've got Boss Lady on the other side of the mic this time. You guys have been paying real close attention. She's been help producing the podcast. We're kind of delegating things out a little different because we have that much work for all these people behind the scenes. I don't really think you guys realize how much stuff goes on and how much time it takes to bring some of this stuff to you. So nevertheless, we are going to kind of do some recapping. Apparently, I'm going to also be assaulted by Boss Lady with questions randomly that was not provided to me. And because it's Boss Lady, producer dude probably would just smack him around. Probably not as able to do that with Boss Lady. And she's also way tougher than producer dude. So here we are, a little recap of things to come, and also a little grilling by Boss Lady herself. Is that true?
It's absolutely true. I'm taking the
Scared.
reins.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say that.
No,
There's
I
veto
am.
power
I'm
here.
boss lady and I'm doing the podcast, and so I'm in charge.
That title is somewhat sarcastic, but go ahead.
I'm owning it. I'm owning it.
Mm,
So,
yeah,
I mean, I just want to kind of get down to it. You've been a little MIA from walleye. And
yeah.
if anybody follows you on the social media, I feel like people are like, why aren't you fishing walleye right now? So if I was to come to Lake Erie and fish, is there an actual off time or why haven't you been fishing walleye? What's been going on here just a little bit?
It's a good question. Anybody that's asked to run on a guide trip has heard this spiel, but here it is for those who you have not asked. September is kind of that time, when I was doing some stuff with my buddies, he calls it a shoulder season, regardless where you're at. But you think about it like this: August, bite can still be pretty good. You guys that watched our stuff there, salmon fishing, but also when we went down to the basically the western end of the Eastern Basin, basically the end of Erie. Smoke Fire Bite with B Team Bob and Travis. That video was pretty good. But September is one of those times you think about it like this: that water temperature is dang near pushing 80 degrees. We got to get around 50. How does that happen? A lot of nasty weather, a lot of nasty storms, a lot of turmoil, that water flipping. It's not really technically a turnover, depending on who you talk to. And so, at any rate, we don't do a lot of fishing. A lot of guys stuck on shore. Even the perch and stuff don't tend to go as good. Some of the bass guys do all right. But truthfully, I think the thing that people don't realize, even though we have talked about this quite a bit, is there's a lot of stuff that I have to do behind the scenes. So for R&D stuff, picture taking, meetings, going and visiting the sponsors in house, talking about things, all the product development stuff for next year, contracts, all these things. So I did a lot of traveling, like a whole bunch. I did some
So before
stuff.
we get there, I'm going to barge in
Oh,
and interrupt you.
just your boss
So,
lady. I get it. Yeah.
exactly.
Boy,
So
it's like producer dude
it's
on
going to
steroids.
it's going to be a long hour. You better bear with me.
Mm,
So, being a full-time professional fisherman, there really isn't an off season then, is what you're saying, because you have sponsors. You can't just take a couple months and not do your deliverables for sponsors, correct?
Correct. No, it's one of those deals. You say we don't have a vacation schedule, so you can go do whatever you want. And it's like, but it's actually the opposite. I'm a small business owner. That's what it is. And I think we have 18 partners that we are very fortunate to have, and have had most of them for quite a long time. Most of them over a decade, of some of them pushing 20 years or more. And really, there's always something going on. So, as an example, in July, I'm ordering my ice fishing equipment, taking inventory on that. And people are probably not thinking about ice fishing, at least the average guy is probably not thinking about ice fishing in July. But we're always have something going on. We're always a season ahead or more. So whether it's doing maintenance on things, planning the boat wrap, traveling to all of these companies, working on R&D stuff. We do a lot of that. I've developed a lot of products through the years, either on my own or designed with companies. That list is, I think, well over 50 items at this point. So there's always testing, there's content gathering. When you guys see this, I know some people, especially you older guys, no offense, they see some content and they think, well, it happened today. Sometimes we'll put an ice fishing picture up in July just as kind of a thing to say, hey, thinking of cooler weather. So when you see some of these things happen, so we do store things. There's our times too. We just don't want people to know when we're doing certain things, to be perfectly honest. But there's a lot of stuff going on. We do not really have an off time. So I tried to kind of piggyback these periods like to September, where I go to some of the companies I work with. We just kind of touch base, see what's going on, marketing plans, product stuff, all the stuff we already talked about. Now, this year it was a little different. So I traveled to, I was like 8 or 9 states, and a lot of it's with buddies, but that's what my job is. It's these guys are relationships and these are other friendships and things. But I spent time in the Dakotas, out west there in several states that I just, for reasons I can't say, we'll just leave it at that. Went to Green Bay, spent some time on other bodies of water on the Great Lakes, and the real thing was working with forward facing sonar. So real talk, Mega Live is an amazing thing, and it's getting better. It's being developed as we speak. I can not say too much, but there are some new things coming out, and I'm trying to learn that. And part of my job is people maybe see the guide aspect, and I get it, but there's that whole other thing that's going on, and I have to basically, even if it's a podcaster sitting here talking about this stuff, I have to understand, like a politician, what's going on around me in all things. So even if I'm not casting slip bobbers, I have to have a little bit of a working knowledge of that. And let's be honest, forward facing sonar right now is the biggest thing in the game. And absolutely, to not utilize that technology would be ridiculous on my standpoint. We are utilizing it. A lot of stuff that we're doing with helping develop and test things, we just can't tell you about right now. But there are some really, big advancements coming here in the next couple of months. And I was going and fishing in a lot of different situations with people that are way better than I am with it, generally speaking, you younger fellas, but also just in a variety of conditions. Because once you do what I do, you know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. So to see that in more current, less current, bigger bodies of water, reservoirs, rivers, and things like that, it really helps me all the way around and helps me talk to you guys about it. And that's why I can be a little more confident in some of my what may seem like bullheadedness when I take the time, to go work with guys who are really the best at what they do, and guys that I have relationships with and long term friendships with that let me in on things that they're probably not going to let you in on. Being brutally honest, a lot of these guys that I spent time with, there's no way in hell they're going to get on a podcast. There's no way in hell they're going to tell you or show you what they showed me, because that's their little secret thing, whether it's tournament fishing or the fact that they're just not into showing everybody. Does that make sense, boss lady?
It does, but so some
Mm.
things we can't talk about, which is fine, we're gonna leave them. But after you did some of that, where did you go? You kinda reunited with somebody, didn't you?
My buddy Jersey Joe.
Yeah, tell us
Yeah.
about your trip out to Jersey.
So, me and Sir Melly been buddies for, I bet you it's a little over 15 years now. And me and him traveling around doing stuff. And we used to always do the walleye thing, which Joe's a guy that likes seeing things develop. He likes to travel, but he said it. I mean, it's not a secret. He doesn't really care about walleyes. He likes seeing kind of how we dissect things, and he likes seeing how things work. And we're very similar in that. And he also likes to go to kind of freaky places and wacky things, and do some sightseeing, if you will. So he's invited me several times here, to go stay at Casa de Joe. And this time we went to the beach house. Like, we upgraded because his in laws are balling out. Apparently, they got some cool stuff near Atlantic City. Now, that Atlantic City, like, sidebar, what the hell is going on there? It's like it's a ghost town. Apparently, pocket gambling on your phone has changed things in the Jersey Shore, but nevertheless, they got some really good fish in there. So we reunited with my buddy Kerber, who's Joe's best buddy. We went and did some offshore fishing, and there was a lot of shenanigans going on there. And honestly, kind of like digressing again, because that's what I do. We were testing some stuff for Z-Man and Rapala. Again, I'm a freshwater guy, but we've got a lot of cool saltwater baits. My saltwater collection is getting bigger and bigger, and so we're getting a little bit of content with that, and also, again, just learning different things. I think it's really great to go see a lot of different things, and surprisingly, some of those things kind of cross over, and you learn a different way of doing things. Because we were fishing a lot of species with what most people would consider pretty light gear. So it kind of helps keep you in tune with things. And again, I think the neatest thing for me, and I hope you guys can understand or relate this, but we fished with a buddy with Joe's, who Joe had to, quote, court him for a year to let him get in the boat, because this guy is dialed in with some tog fishing, but specifically sheephead, not our sheephead, those black bar suckers that taste pretty good and fight really hard. And this guy, again, we couldn't really say a whole lot because he's really is doing something that much different. And that whole process was amazing to see him. And I felt really kind of blessed that they let me in on their little, slice of heaven there. And that was an inshore deal. And it was really neat to just see. It was kind of like, because of the current that they had, which really it was a tide. It really kind of reminded me of fishing in a river or something like that, even though we were in a giant bay. But we had a lot of shenanigans there. We shot a podcast there that will talk about some of this with Joe, so you can hear it right from his mouth. But uh, we had people. We had a drunk lady that just really wouldn't leave me alone. And as Joe would tell you, I did not instigate it. So that was, you'll see some stuff on that. But yeah, it's really neat to just go with some other people, even though I don't really care about sheephead per se, or we caught some mahis and stuff like that. Like, it's not really my jam, but I think it's neat watching and seeing just different stuff. And even though we were using hair jigs as an example with the mahi and then some Z-Man soft plastics, it's just a little bit bigger. In some cases, not even that much bigger of lures. Sometimes a little bit bigger hooks. That we're doing a very similar but yet very different tactic, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. So I mean, what total species did you catch out there? Anything that you've never caught before?
Oh, there was a bunch of stuff, and even though I've caught things before, I think when you're doing it differently, if it's totally different, if that makes sense. Like, somebody out here may have caught mahi where they were trolling and somebody handed them a rod. Like, I know I'm setting myself up with this, but if you're trolling for mahi with these giant like tuna, like marlin plugs, the big skirted things that look like a squid that are 2 feet long, and then you're casting at them with basically a bass rod and literally like an overgrown walleye hair jig, or like we were using the Mulletron by Z-Man, the new swim bait. It's a totally different deal. It is just totally different. These fish have insane power, and you're essentially fishing them on bass or walleye tackle, quite literally. I mean, using not much difference in pound test or anything like that. I literally brought some of the P-line leader material along that we were using, just for walleyes. So but to answer your question, we've done togs. I mean, on some of these trips, like with Cermelli, as a kid, I've done some of this, but last year, or I guess it was 2 years ago, on one of these trips with Jersey Joe, I caught like pushing a 40-pound striped bass, spinning rod. We had a tog, which is, look that one up, an amazing table fare. We had Jersey Joe cook that up at his house for me. Um, we had mahis. God, what did we have? Sheephead I've caught, but incidentally, like, we were targeting them on purpose. There was a bunch of small stuff. Really, I think where the new species came on, I know you're gonna yell at me probably for jumping ahead, but we went to
No, you can't jump ahead yet. And no, you
oh,
can't.
we
No,
we didn't go, okay.
nope,
Yeah,
we're not
okay,
there yet.
okay,
Remember, I'm the boss.
yeah. But I guess for you guys listening to this, they're like, "Huh? What?" It would be like saying, "Hey, you went and you trolled with crankbaits on Lake Erie, and now you went and fished a live bait rig on Mille Lacs." So you can say, "Well, I have caught walleyes," but it's a totally, you might as well be, it's apples and oranges, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. And then I just have to ask because I kind of know, and I'm sure your followers do too. Did Joe bust out the fly fishing equipment?
It's funny you say that, because he jokingly, because I think he knows. He's like, there's a couple guys in the boat. And I was like, you are not doing this. I'm going to shut you down. But we had enough guys on the boat. So we had like his neighbor, Steve, who I've got to know, who quite literally is Jersey Joe's neighbor. And obviously Kerber and his first mate and those guys. And so we had quite a few guys on the boat, that it physically might not have been possible. And it would have been physically impossible for him to drive home after I beat his ass if he was trying.
Okay, okay. That makes sense. Now, did you get much rest when you left there, or kind of what happened when you left Jersey? And then where did you go?
I got 0. Like, I didn't sleep for almost the 3 weeks. It was nonstop, because then again, at night, just like a lot of you guys that, maybe do some of these similar things, even if it's not in fishing, is, you come home and now we got work to do. People don't care about the emails or this or that, or, trying to get people lined up with trips, or some of the sponsor stuff and wanting answers on things. But I flew right back from Joe's, and we added another trip on, and because of equipment and timing and everything, I literally flew back to Detroit. Country Steve's wife picked me up, and because she's basically concierge to the stars here for fishing, and I stayed at his house for about, it was like 6 hours, I think, because we flew out at like 2 in the morning. So I literally ate, broke my tooth at the, by the way, literally broke my tooth. within about 2 hours before I was to fly to Mexico with Country Steve and another one of our buddies. We went to Cabo. Like like kind of a bucket list trip where we definitely checked off
Now
a bunch of
let's
species.
yeah, let's talk about that because you boys weren't just down there partying in Cabo.
We honestly did like zero partying. We between the time change and the fishing and the heat and everybody, and then these guys being older than me, we fished hard and we went to bed. Like we were in bed early. There was zero partying. I don't think we even drank. Country Steve's not a drinker. I don't think I even had 5 beers in an entire week, to be honest with you. I know I didn't. It was the thing is with these things, again, if you want to do it, more power to you. But truthfully, with these guys that I go with, it's not that we don't have a drink and have some camaraderie and stuff, but it's honestly, it's fishing till you're just wore out and then you do it again. I know guys are like, oh, I wish I got to fish every day. Dude, I bet you can't fish, 10 days in a row and tell me that you still are loving life. It's physically a lot of going on.
So you got down there and let's talk about the fishing. It was amazing. You caught some fish you've never caught before. Kind of go over methods, the type of boats you were in. It was very interesting.
It was interesting, yeah. I don't know if amazing, it was I don't know how to describe it. I think that it's one of those things. We went down there and we had one of my buddies who has friends, and there's definitely some dialed in things, right? And I made a few calls to a few buddies who have done that thing, and I think that many people can kind of relate, whether it's a ski trip or whatever it is. When you've got your neighbor that has this and that and knows the guy or rents the Airbnb or whatever it is, you're kind of at the mercy of the situation, right? So we got down there, and then we there's three of us, and there's very big personalities there between these three people. I mean, that might be the understatement of the entire century, right?
That's a
So
total understatement.
yeah, because you actually know all three of these people. But long story short, I was going down there I wanted to experience Cabo. It's a really unique deal. It's kind of like the Gulf of Mexico on the other side over there, if you guys don't know the Baja Peninsula, because we were actually fishing a majority of the time in the Sea of Cortez, which is basically the inside of the Pacific Ocean. And it's one of those deals, you get those warmer waters, the currents and the things, kind of like you get in the Gulf of Mexico. It's almost like Key West, 100 years ago, quite literally. And you get a lot of different species in there. So again, during the shoulder season, you have a place that some of those fish are still going to be there, and you still have the opportunity to catch a variety of things, because in one area it may be, it was 60 feet, but then you've got 3,000 feet not that far away. So you can imagine how the whole life cycle and the things work there, and it's not that far off. So it just allows a lot of opportunities. But I can tell you, I learned a lot of things, and we're going to talk about one of these fully in another podcast. But I don't know how deep you want me to get into this, but like on these trips, I just think that there's a lot of things that I can relate to somebody that, maybe will help them regardless if they're going on, I don't care if it's a fly trip or if they're fishing for, albacore or something like that. I don't think the species matters as much as some of the steps and the things that, mistakes that I've made, things that I've been around, or people that have helped me not from making these mistakes, if that makes sense.
Well, let's go there. I mean, we've got the people listening. You're talking about traveling. Let's talk about some of those.
Well, I think the biggest thing is I'll relate it back to my own guide service. Today's day and age of texting and instant messaging and all of this stuff is people don't want to talk to me on the phone. Generally speaking, they want to email, or barely even email. Emails, that's like they don't want to do that anymore. And the people, I pretty much make them talk to me on the phone because I want to have an understanding of what's important to them, because it doesn't always come across well on texting, right? We can all say that we have like resting bitch face on some of our texts. There's a lot of miscommunication, or people read into it what they want. And I think it's really important to talk to your guide, and in this Mexico deal, it was going to be what it was going to be. These guys don't really speak that much English, and I think they definitely know more than what they lead on. But we had one guide who we think is 14, 15 years old, who was actually a really hardworking guy. He did not speak English. The Google Translate was my friend talking to him. But I think that there's different places that in different mindsets, I guess, right? So different places you go. I think this probably applies to outside the US a little more, because we don't understand the cultures and the ways of handling things. That you need to let them know what you want to do. And then the most important thing is not to tell them when you can come, tell them what you want to do first. because then all of a sudden, if somebody has an opening, oh, no, 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 we do that. Oh, amazing. Perfect. You know what I mean? And it's like because somebody's trying to fill a slot, just like I don't care if you're a bricklayer or whatever you do, somebody's trying to fill a slot so that they can make a living. And I think that, especially in Mexico, they always have their hand out. And I'm sure somebody could say, that's profiling or this or that, but they really do try to nickel and dime you to death. And again, maybe somebody thinks that's the way it is with fishing, even on the Great Lakes for walleyes or something here. But you really, I think, if you're going to do one of those, you don't want to go with like a resort deal or one of those guys that's so super polished. Like we've talked about this in other podcasts about not having someone that you don't book it off of the brochure that's in the hotel, like because that's a tourist captain. But you also don't want that deal where these people are like on the extreme other end of that and they don't really give a shit, which happens a lot in these destination places. So you kind of need to figure that in between thing where like the guy gets it, and a lot of that's just word of mouth or how you're going to find that. And it is really a tough thing, I think, because these people they're going to take you and do what they're going to do.
No, that makes sense, and that's good advice for people looking to travel. And speaking of traveling, what is one bucket list location that you want to fish?
Well, one cool part of what I do is we have a lot of clients through the years that are friends, they're family at this point, and these people don't just go walleye fishing. A majority of them, they do lots of stuff, and I have several clients that, the Costa Rica, the Belize, the things like that, that is definitely a destination thing because you can do, I guess I didn't even talk about the species in Mexico yet, but because you can do a variety of things. And so for me, like when I'm a walleye guy, you go where the best walleye bite is, right? But for me, as not being in love with any species in the saltwater, just enjoying the experiences and the travel, and maybe a little bit of the table fare. I think that a place like Costa Rica or Belize, where you can do a lot, they have a really diverse ecosystem. You can do a lot of different stuff, so that's very appealing to me. And also trophy species, because I'd like to catch big stuff, right? We don't. Nobody likes to catch small things, right?
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Nobody likes small stuff.
No.
So, no. So now that you talked about that, I mean, what did you end up catching and experiencing while you were there in Mexico?
So we had some yellowfin tuna. We had some bonita, which nothing likes bonita, except for grouper on the bottom. I guess they cut those up for that. I was fortunate enough to get like a 9 foot, I think it was, maybe not quite. It was close to that. Those sailfish. That was pretty insane to watch that thing come tailing in this little chum line, and then, hand over fist, basically getting this thing in. It was a reel that was probably almost as old as me. The equipment was a little rough down there, and fighting this thing for about a half an hour with no fighting belt, no butt cap. I had a giant bruise. I should have taken a picture of that because they had the gimbal mount with the plastic or the rubber cap off, so I had that metal like diamond X ground into me with this rod, and fought that thing for about a half an hour. Country Steve got a giant wahoo, which was amazingly tasty. I caught a triggerfish. There was a bunch of different grouper species that I think we both, when I say we, our Mexican guides and what we would call them are different species, but there's a million groupers. But we had a few of those on the list. God, what else did we have? We had, roosterfish. Me and Country Steve both got our first roosterfish. So that was and they weren't giants by the what they can get, but those things fight. They're nuts. It's almost like a cartoon character down there. Seeing those things run around, the big old kind of long dorsals that look like a mullet. Kind of remind me of Buddy Pete Mania a little bit.
Nice. So it sounds like you guys had a good time
We
and
did.
you made it through Mexico with only a slight altercation. Do you want to talk about the issue with Country Steve?
Yeah, Country Steve. I'm gonna throw him solely and hardly under the bus, but then I'm gonna break this up a little bit. So, Country Steve, he was. I went back to we had this amazing place we were staying at, and right on the water there. And I'm like, I got to go back and get a little bit of work done. We had producer dude and boss lady were on me about getting some things to hit some deadlines that popped up. So, nevertheless, I'm getting that done. Country Steve went to pick up one of our buddies and he was dinking around or whatever. Well, long story short, when you're in a foreign country, and I think this is something y'all need to think about, is you think about how maybe even some of you guys handle this when you see people that are not from here and how maybe you look at it as being disrespectful. But make sure you you handle yourself so we're not the dirty Americans is basically what I'm getting at in the nicest possible way. But they saw Country Steve in a rental car, like there's stickers on there, and we believe he was a federale, air quotes if you guys are watching this on YouTube. But long story short, he was either an off-duty one posing as, or he was just a total scammer because he pulled Country Steve over, and we have a friend who's a lawyer down there. And long story short, he got scammed. So Country Steve came back bragging about how he only got out of this $1,000 fine for a couple $100, but as it turns out, it's a $40 ticket if it was even done. And so he definitely got taken. And apparently, the Mexican government, because so many places like Cabo, they're based on tourism, like that's their deal. And so they were, they're not happy about it either, because then you see this stuff on Instagram, you see this stuff on the YouTube or whatever. And so, it puts a black mark on them as well. But on the flip of that, I'm giving him mad shit because, of course, he came back immediately and was like, "Yeah, what's up? I got out of this. I got out of this. Yeah, you know what's up." He was cocky as all get up, and then it was like, "Well, it was fake, so you really didn't." But on the flip of it, I can tell you, if you had a Mexican cop and you cannot speak, and he's using, your phone and doing the translation on there and telling you $1,000 or you're going to jail, I'm betting most people listening to this are going to talk tough until you're sitting there in the 100-degree heat on the side of a road and you don't know anybody or anywhere, that you may not be as cocky. That fair?
Well, and especially in Mexico.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because even like the travel advisor, I was busting his balls hard because he got us flying to Mexico City. Like totally, people do not do that. Like that one, he was not happy with me because I was riding his ass. Like, why did you book this? Like, because he had to jump on and get his tickets there. But yeah, there's certain areas you want to avoid. Like, I'm sure you guys, maybe you go there for vacation or have a spring break or something like that, and they're like, "Oh no, it's amazing here," and they have armed guards, and they're like, "As long as you don't leave our premises," and it's like, yeah, that's freaking jail. But some of these places, they're people that they know you're there, they know you have money, and they're gonna try to get you to part with it or worse. So I think you got to be a little smart at times, not assume things. I think sometimes we're as Americans, we are a little naive with things.
But you guys survived and you both
We
made it
did.
back here to the US.
We didn't kill each other or a federale, so that was like win win.
Nice.
There was
Nice.
moments, I think, too.
Well, now you're back and we're rolling into walleye time.
Yeah.
And there's lots of other stuff happening this time of year. So why don't you give us the rundown of what's happening with the brawl, the slam, and kind of your game plan going forward here?
So I was gone for literally a little over a month, almost nonstop. And when I came back, I don't even think I had any clean underwear, to be honest with you. I think the first day, I think I had to do a turn inside out or something like that. Dropped the bags, and that next morning, I got up and I went fishing. Like when I jumped in the boat and we had guide trips. I did not tell those people that I had been in Mexico like hours before, but it all worked out just fine. Got
They
right back
probably
on them like,
smelt you.
yeah, that's very possible. It stank up on it. But,
Yeah.
yeah, we didn't miss a beat. I had all the gear ready, plugged in the boat, and that's a nice thing about, like, the Dakota lithium batteries. They did not draw down, even not being used for that amount of time, and had everything ready to go. Planning, again, kinda like what you asked at the very beginning. I don't think people realize how much planning has to go into these things as far as, I have a lot of reels. I got a lot of Shimano line counters and even spinning reels. And, me and B Team Bob actually spent an entire day going through and spooling. I think we had 40 or 50 of them that we did, and calibrating and putting some new Endurex braid in some of our spinning reels for some of this forward facing stuff. And just a lot of things going on before we even, can jump back into the boat, getting our ice fishing gear. We got that all kind of prepped. So if when we get ice, that's all ready, because we got a couple different setups. You guys that have ice fished with us know what I'm talking about. But as we get into this deal, it's kind of a weird thing, because we're catching a lot of fish on lead core right now because the fish are really deep because the water's still in the 60s. And, we've had some really cool mornings. But then again, like today, it was 60 something, where it was 30 something a couple days ago. And things have really been changing a lot. But fortunately, we've got enough fish that have moved down into the central basin. So they're kind of within striking distance, if you will, for me. And we had a guy today. I'm just going to tell you, he's one of my longtime guys. We love him. I know he listens to this podcast. Dumbass did not sign up for the fall brawl or the walleye slam. Possibly, we've had a couple fish that would have made us at this point a lot of money because people weren't signed up. I don't know. Did they get our newsletter? Do they not see all of our reminders with links? We treat them like they're 4-year-olds. Hand
I
feed
mean,
this stuff.
you have said it on social media, you have said it in emails. Fall Brawl and Walleye Slam even send emails and do social media. Uh, I don't
I
know.
tell them all the time, and this is probably not appropriate given the current situation here, but I tell them if these guys were gals, I would be probably thrown in jail for stalking. That's how much communication we're giving them. But nevertheless,
You
so
you would be you would be thrown in jail,
probably, yeah,
but
probably,
it's
or at
okay.
least
I mean,
I've arraigned. I've got good lawyers, though. Anybody that's thinking about that, got some really good clients, lawyers, big ballers. But
no, but I mean, they do need the reminders because, like today, without name dropping, even though I'm gonna bust his chops because
blue
I know
boat,
him.
blue boat, blue boat.
Yeah, he's in
uh,
trouble. He's in
yeah.
trouble.
Yeah, that's oh boy. But yeah, no, the fall thing's getting in swing. I don't know when this is. Maybe you can help me. When this is going to come out? This is going to come out after, so they should have already seen our day in the
Yes.
lake with Captain Chip. So we put a
Yes.
smoke fest bite on, and again, I think people all the time they're like, "Oh, what do you do in October?" And it's like, I carry the kitchen sink, even enough that I've got a Burt's rod corral on my front deck now because I've been carrying so many rods. We've been using so many different things, Allure Jensen Dipsy divers. We've got the lead core, basically like a slightly shallower version of what we may do in the summertime. Thunder sticks have been straight up jacking them. A couple of my buddies there that run big boats, I've got them on that Thunderstick program, and they even called me even today, and they're like, "Thank you." Because that's been going so good. But the other big thing is spoons. I'm not a big spoon guy, even though Captain Chip, the owner of Silver Streak Lures, is a great friend of mine and a supportive sponsor for, I think we're at like 22 years or something that we have worked together, believe it or not, at this point, 22 or 23. But spoons have been hot, and they're really easy. So when you're on it, it's really easy to duplicate, and we've been doing that a handful of ways. And if you want to know more about that, watch the darn video, because we absolutely put a smoke fest together there and broke it down really good. I was basically just a net man and a set man, and we had several captains on the boat that made that flow pretty good there with Chip. So make sure you check that out. But as we get in here, I think that I have caught fish in the teens in October before in this warm weather. Again, fluke, yeah, probably a little bit, but obviously we're fishing a lot. But I would tell you that it's like not out of the question. Right now, as warm as it is, the guys are actually catching them, so I hear, at night from shore all over the place. So I think sometimes these fish are almost on that clock, as far as like the calendar and not necessarily the conditions, if that makes sense. Same thing with fish spawning at times. I think there's lunar things involved or something where they're just like, November, go eat. But as we roll in here in the next upcoming weeks or so, I really think things are going to get good with a bite. It's already good. Yesterday I had an 8-pounder and a 7-pounder in just a short amount of time, and just 4 or 5 fish on at a time. So that was really, really nice. And not that many people out there, I think, because everybody's waiting, taking their vacation or whatever towards the end. But sometimes the traffic will shut that down more than the time, if that makes sense.
So if people are getting ready to come out, I mean, any tips and tricks without obviously giving it all away, because you've got your own clients that you're trying to get on fish for the Fall Brawl and Slam. And we don't want to say too much because you did do some tips and tricks in the videos, so the people need to watch the video. But just a quick little.
Yeah, I'm not telling them much, to be honest with you, because we put so much out there. Like I don't need, I think a lot of these guys appreciate it, and the guys that send the little notes, thank you very much. Let us know what you like more of or not. But sometimes it kind of pisses me off a little bit because these people want to be hand fed things and they don't want to listen to the things that really matter. You know what I mean? And they're like, "What color is Thunder Stick?" It's like, well, even on Captain Chip's boat, we ran 8 or 9 of them, and I don't really know that there was any that were that much crazier better for from start to finish. But the biggest thing is to use your electronics, watch your electronic videos, find those fish that everybody is not on, and spread your stuff out in the water column. We've caught some fish extremely high and extremely low. Both of those things probably don't get a lot of lures in front of them by most people. And to just keep an open mind. I think too many people just want it spoon fed to them. They want to go on a Facebook forum, or group or whatever you want to call it nowadays, and they're like, "Oh, using husky jerks, 60 back." That's all, and they go out and that's what they do. And these people don't fish the conditions, or they just don't. They want to fish somebody else's deal. And half the time, those people, trust me, I see it as a client when we have a multi boat trip and a group gets out and they tell them, "Oh yeah, we caught them all on this," and I like look at my other captain. I was like, huh? And he's like, I don't know what they're talking about. That's not what we were doing. That's not the color we caught them on. Like people, it's like a bad game of telephone. If you all remember that with the soup can, remember that whole deal? A lot is lost in translation. So sometimes just don't worry about what everybody else is doing and trust yourself a little bit. And if you have that much trouble and you don't trust yourself at all, maybe book us for an educational trip. Maybe take B Team Bob out. B Team Bob loves taking guys fishing. We can get you all dialed in with that.
Well, speaking of conditions, and I know this changes from day to day, what is going on with the water column right now? What are you seeing? And again, this could change within the next 24 hours. It can do lots of
With the
things,
water
but
column,
yeah, what are you seeing?
I think, didn't you just hear me? You're like one of my guide clients now.
I'm
We
going through the
honest
questions.
Oh my god, she's like didn't listen to me is what it is, like producer dude part 2. So honestly, it 100% changes day to day. Like there's some different leads on lead cores that we haven't been doing that good on, and then today that was absolute fire deal, keeping an open mind. A lot of times we're fishing below them. I know there's some fish being caught in the top 10 foot of the water column, not every day, but really every day I go out. I think people sometimes think that, that's a blessing, and it can be. But sometimes when you fish every day and you have success, you forget, to keep an open mind and you just do what works until it doesn't. And then it's too late, if that makes sense. So really we're spreading them out, again, just like that Captain Chip video. We're running, some lead cores, we're running some flat lines, just straight mono, like P line CXX strong, just straight up, running some dipsy divers. I even put a downrigger down the other day. I do have my downrigger down a bunch, but mainly just to have the fish hawk. But we snapped a line on there, and we caught a few, even though they were smaller. But um, play the water column. Don't get caught up, and especially not looking at your screen. I've said this 1,000 times, but I hardly ever look at my screen while we're fishing because I just know how those fish will spook from underneath or change where they're at in the water column. Using Mega Live has taught me this. Watching these fish go down as they get closer to the boat and then go right back up over it. Like I don't think that they know it's a boat. I just think that they know it's not something good. Just like not to run out in front of traffic. You don't really know. Like, well, maybe I shouldn't do this. So you kind of hang back there. So I mark them at speed. I run a Humminbird Helix. Got that all set up. We got tons of videos on that. People still, I don't know if they don't trust me or they don't want to take the time to get that figured out, but running at speed 25, 30 miles an hour and seeing those fish and where they're actually at in the column, just like that high bite, seeing that bait high, you're probably not going to mark those walleyes that high unless there's a trillion of them, but seeing some of that bait high or little things like that kind of give you a little piece of the puzzle that, hey, I should probably be thinking about spreading some things out. And even if you just do it for half an hour, if they're up there, they're probably going to bite and it's not going to matter what color you got on, and expand upon that program or collapse it.
Okay, now let's talk with fall weather. It's changing, winds come in, the current, it disrupts, it just causes a little bit of a mess. So, talk about how important having that fish hawk is. And I know we touched on it a bit with the video with Chip, but go ahead and go over it again on the fish hawk.
Yeah, in that video with Chip, it was classic. We absolutely smashed them going downwind, and the advantage of that big boat and those bigger boards is they can turn and go into stuff that we probably couldn't in my Ranger, or at least not comfortably. And also, it changes our inline boards. The action's much more herky jerky, but it was really pretty calm. But we turned around and we started going the other way, and as we're turning, like boom, bite goes to zero. Get turned back around, realize, hey, I can't remember what it was, 5 or 6 tenths off. That's going to totally change where all those lines are at. Totally going to change it. And, we weren't catching. Then all of a sudden, boom, we get that kick back up and we're right back on it. So people all the time ask me, especially at seminars, like, what's the alternative for a fish hawk? Because I don't want to buy a fish hawk. And it's like, There is no alternative for a fish hog. I mean, do you want to use a sundial, to tell what time it is, or do you just want to look at your watch? I mean, that's how insane that is to say that. And these same guys, I always ask them the same thing. I'm like, how many custom painted bandits you got? How many custom painted husky jerks you got? And they're like, oh, I got like, so you got $20 in each one of those baits. You could have bought that fish hawk 10 times over, and 90% of those lures aren't worth what they're painted on. So the fish hawk is incredibly important for even this early in the year. Can be a temperature thing as well, and seeing those little temp breaks. But the speed thing is huge because I immediately know where my speed is at for my depths and for duplicating what was successful. Where other guys are going to waste hours or days trying to figure that out, or not even know to figure it out because they don't even know what they don't know.
Good advice. Now, are you seeing anybody doing a lot of jigging this time of year?
As you see most of the guys out there that there's a lot of perch fishing and stuff going on, but more and more guys are doing the forward facing thing. Although I would say right now, the people that we see, especially because how spread out the fish are, right now they're not, that's the thing when you have warmer water like this, these fish are not clumped up. You still have got little groups all over the place. And so that would make it more difficult to try to do that casting thing. It's just like, hitting a needle in a haystack type of situation. As this water gets colder, those bait fish and those walleyes are going to get grouped up tighter and tighter. But right now, everything's spread out. Even on a day where, like Saturday, when we shot this video with Captain Chip, everybody was really spread out. Like there was no problems with anybody fighting in other boats because everybody was catching fish, I'm sure, but there was just pods everywhere. There wasn't that one biomass where you had to be there, and if you weren't there, you weren't getting bit.
That's good. Now let's talk about some etiquette. Fall brawl gets yeah, yeah. I wanted to open up a can of worms. So
Mm.
fall brawl gets a little crazy.
It's
A lot more
ridiculous.
traffic down here. Let's just talk a little bit about some etiquette.
Well, we joked about it on the Captain Chip, not to keep harping on that, but it's that good of a video, so check it out. Shameless plug, but it really is going to help you out as well. There's a new color of spoon we were catching on called Broke Nose, and I said that's probably what somebody's going to get if they keep it up with some of this boat handling out here. I don't know. I don't think it's a fishing thing. Like people hear me say this. I don't really think that it's fishermen are bad. I just think that if you go to a Walmart and you watch I don't care if it's 20-year-old or a 60-year-old dude, they slam the door on some old lady, you know what I mean, instead of holding it for it. I think we have a culture problem. And I think that has rolled over into fishing, but nobody gives a shit. And the problem is now with all these cell phone cameras, you can't do like maybe allegedly people used to do in the past and, punch somebody's face because they only need to see that a couple times. And all of a sudden now they're like, hey, don't do that. Everybody's tough. I always say everybody's tough on the lake, when they just cut off people and for no reason. Um, Go out there, man. Just God, give a little bit of courtesy. Karma goes a long way. Because again, there has been a few people that got their eyes dotted there when they get back to shore. And I know that I probably can't say on here, can I, boss lady? I probably would not be wise to say some of those things, but um, yeah, everybody take a strain. I hear people yelling at other people in boats. I'm fishing the fall brawl. I got a fish on. Whoop de freaking do. Everybody is and everybody does. Everybody's just so concerned about themselves. And again, not a fishing thing. I think this is a life thing we've got going on right now. Just turn on the TV and see some of the wackiness and all these jackass politicians. But just be kind. We're out there fishing. We're supposed to be having fun. Don't raise the blood pressure of yourself or somebody else, especially for this little thing that you're not going to, only one person is going to be changed by this deal realistically.
Okay. And what about some boat launch
I can't
etiquette?
believe you didn't I
Because
can't believe you didn't give me anything on that. I thought you were going to scold me or be like,
no, no,
"Oh,
no, I let you
okay."
just rant because you actually filtered it pretty well.
Boat launch etiquette. I'm going to give you a bunch of things on that because every year I get people and I do vocally go up and tell people because I think the thing is that people don't realize it's probably like grandma says, it's not what you say, but how you say it. Sometimes my delivery maybe should be a little bit different, but um, turn off your headlights. If you're launching in the dark, turn off your headlights. You blind everybody else, plain and simple, when you're backing down. So nobody else can back down. I've told many people this and they go, oh my God, I never thought of that. I don't know how. I really don't, because if you've ever backed down and somebody else did it, you literally can't see. And I'm pretty darn good at backing up. Another would be, and this is my big one because I almost put a truck in the drink here a few years ago because of this. When it's freezing, drain your mother effing trailer. Do not rip that some bitch out. I am going to dot somebody's eye with this before I'm done again. I'm going to say it again because it's ridiculous. Like, well, it didn't, I got out. It's fine. All of the people behind you are going to be screwed because basically, if you kind of picture this, you rip that trailer out, you don't realize it unless you stand in there and GoPro it or something. You're putting gallons of water all over the ramp and you're making an ice skating rink. So that next guy's truck is going to slide right down the darn thing. So, um, don't do that. On the flip of that, have a tow strap or have things ready for that, four-wheel drive, whoever's back in your vehicle, and go slow. Another thing, that I would have done different on my circumstance when I was sliding around there because this jackass, greased me up pretty good, is leave the boat attached on the bow. My boat came off, in the water there, but the boat, and if it stays on the trailer, will actually keep your truck up and from sliding back down more. If that makes sense. So, and don't panic. That's another little thing with that is once you get down to that water line where it's not froze, you're going to be fine. So just don't panic. That's the big thing. It's a lot easier to say that than to do that. Kind of like when the federales are telling you that you need to fine $1,000 or they're going to throw you in jail. And then the other thing would be the courtesy dock. Mother effer again. Like, do you know what like even, we've got some courtesy docks down here that are hundreds of feet long. And where I'm really pissed is there's other captains, and you make me look like a shitbag in my own profession when these captains tie up the ramp and taking pictures with their clients' fish and everything on the ramp. Please, you are an asshole. Go use the courtesy docks. If you have somebody that you're not comfortable back in your vehicle, and if you can't float, like I totally get that. I don't let 99% of the people, load or unload my boat, but I use the courtesy dock. If there's absolutely zero people around, yeah, I may tie up or whatever, but I'm doing it so fast, I'm in and out of there. But regardless, the point is use the courtesy dock. Don't think, well, I'm here first and so screw everybody else. That's kind of where we're at with things. And again, because people, I don't think, I have a fearful of getting punched in the face because everybody's so sue happy in cell phones. I really feel like I hope somebody gets punched in the face so that people kind of realize, like, hey, that could be me because I didn't show any courtesy because I didn't care about anybody but me. Like, let's not do that, guys. It makes us look bad as fishermen.
Well, talk about looking bad as fishermen. A lot of people, this could be their first time fishing and they're coming out to do the fall brawl because it was exciting and they saw it. Let's go a little bit on some social media etiquette because I have read some of your comments on some of your stuff just as recently as your fishing report. I'm going to bust those boys' chops. I mean, they were bantering back and forth about, no, you didn't catch that. You're a liar, blah, blah, blah. Let's just talk a little bit about social media etiquette and what this looks like to people who could be new to the sport coming in. And they're like, well, I don't want to post a picture and be assaulted by the little keyboard trolls in their mother's basement.
Well, if anybody is worried about that on mine, they know that I will handle this swiftly and hardly. So if you guys are afraid to post a comment, please let me know directly and for why, because I will rule with an iron fist. As Boss Lady says, block and delete is a form of response. And unfortunately, I think that there is a lot of people that just, I'm just going to say it, they're just basement trolls that want to be heard and they're little losers. And so they feel like they're a big man because they commented on my post or whoever it is. It doesn't matter. They just want to be heard and they're just loser pieces of shit that, don't take the time to do it themselves and they can't do it themselves. But this isn't even I'm a good fisherman or a bad fisherman. It's somebody just being a jackass. And you're right. There are people that go, hey, I'm taking, like I've got a father and a daughter trip coming up here in a couple of days. They just want to go out and have a fun day. They're getting away from all the stuff they got at school and work and everything like that. They don't want to deal with any of this bullshit. So let's help that not be the case. It is getting a little bit ridiculous. I think about a lot of the behind the scenes stuff and the business things and the things that I hear. You look at the bass tournament world right now, kind of in a turmoil because of all this drama and all the bullshit that's going on. And ultimately, that does affect our pockets. It really does. I don't think people, because they don't see it happening today, they don't realize that it does affect them. It affects all of us. You know how this works. It's just the behind the scenes things. Ultimately, the buck does not stop where people think that it does, if that makes sense. And I think people, like as an example, you're not going to beat the the smart into somebody. I think we all listening to this can relate. We all know a bunch of dumb people. You're not going to make somebody smart all of a sudden. You're not going to change somebody that's after Kamala into a Trump or the other way around. Like they just people are in their head. You know, we both think, you know, a lot of people I know think one way and there's a lot just as many people maybe that think another way. But the reality is like as an example of you said, a guy sent me a screenshot today, and I normally you guys like tons of clients and friends. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't read most of them because I don't want to get. I don't want no drama bullshit. I don't need it. But he sent me a thing about these guys that are fishing from shore. You know, like we had Casey on there talking about the shore walleye things. If you could have seen some of the things that were sent to me privately, you'd be like, "Oh my god, people are really getting stupid." And what we talked about was like, and in this one, I just can't grasp. Boss Lead, I want to hear your impression of this. You're somewhat reasonable sometimes. How about that? But we call it spot burning. Okay, so these guys went on, and a guy posted a picture, and somebody said, "Yeah, I know you were fishing by my cousin saw you, and you were at XYZ spot, a shore spot that anybody can drive to, stand there and go catch fish." Right? Well, now you have 1,000 people that are going to show up there. And some of the comments, to me, they didn't make sense. Mind blowing that this is the mentality of some jackasses. Well, you don't own that lake and you can't say shit and da da da. And it's like, you just shut that bite down for everybody, including yourself. What are you thinking? So those people that spend all that time and they go out there and they fish, you know, how many nights not catching them or how many nights trying to figure that bite out or when the timing is, and you want me just to answer, and I get it from people and I try to be nice about it, but well, what time do I need to go and where do I need to go? Because I don't have any time to waste. Whoop-de fucking do. Guess what? Everybody else is in the same boat. So take your time to go figure it out. My job is not to just go tell people where to go and what to do. That I actually get paid to do it and not tell you essentially as a guide. But in this, the flip of it, these people with the shore thing, it has gotten out of control. And now that we've got, you know, in theory, dang near $500,000 up, it's gotten really, really bad. And that's the
I'm gonna play
unfortunate side.
devil's advocate though a little bit.
Oh
I'm gonna
God,
go there.
I'm gonna rip you to shreds.
No, no, I think you're gonna understand because my background obviously is not fishing. I come from a little bit of a different world, and in that world, we call it chicken hawking. So when you go and you
Ooh.
take over somebody else's spot, that's chicken hawking. And the thing that I
Ooh.
don't think people pay attention to, we all want the likes, everybody wants the comments, they all want the feel goods. Be conscious of your backgrounds. So when these
Oh,
guys are all out taking photos, keep your spot a secret because shame on you for posting it and letting the whole world figure it out. Because had that guy maybe not posted that or blurred out the background, there's really cool apps on everybody's phones now. I mean, you can modify and take some of the heat off of that.
100%. And you know, some of the pictures that we've put up recently, you know, we had the team do a little bit of photo editing for the guy there when we were in New Jersey and some of our other stops because of just what you said. And out of respect for them, I did that. You know, they said, "Hey, we understand you want to put some pictures up social media, let people know what you got going on. But please don't burn this because surprisingly, we have a lot of people that follow us in New Jersey, believe it or not. And so, you know, guys were even commenting and letting these guys know that we were fishing with, "Hey, I watch Ross. He's fishing with you tomorrow. How crazy." So I don't think people do realize how big of a world it is or small of a world it is, even though it's big, right? And I don't think you were really devil's advocate on that because that guy in this case, again, originally that posted that was just like, "Hey, here's a fish I caught." Nobody knew where he was at. Another person commented and said, "I know you were at so and so state park or whatever, you know, ABC Pier," and let everybody know. The guy that originally posted it did not. But again, I think there are off me and Casey talked about this on the podcast, pretty good podcast with the night fishing big wallies from shore. There are a lot of clout chasers. I know this may sound really bizarre. I'm sure there are going to be some eye rolls. If if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, or when I'm done doing it at the level I am, or what have you, I promise you there will not be pictures on social media. I have zero posting. I don't post anything on my personal page, hardly ever. Just I, I don't understand it. Again, that's up to you. That's not really to me a live or die type of deal. But I don't understand the clout chasing. I just don't.
I think that's just our society and just what we've kinda gotten to, but I think if people just are smarter, and you mentioned it earlier, if somebody out there does post a picture and you see somebody comment right away, go in and delete it. Just delete it. Get it off of there if they name the location. Try to monitor your posts. And like you said, save some of your pictures. Maybe you catch the winning fish tomorrow. Don't post it till November.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I get it. I mean, but even like on our stuff, I know you help monitor some of our social media, and we've shot videos, and we'll put a teaser. I mean, this is what we do. We put a little video out saying, "Hey, we got a video coming tomorrow on we were catching them on spoons with Captain Chip," like we do, and somebody will be like, "Yeah, I saw you at so and so boat launch, and you were doing this," and I'm like, do you feel better about yourself? Like, are you okay? What's wrong with you? What's going on? Like, I don't, I just can't understand that mentality. And again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, uh, but again, it's not helpful. It hurts everybody. And again, so it's like our stuff. We put out a lot of educational type stuff, all for free at this point, and I just don't understand when people are such a holes about it.
No, I agree. But yet you still want people to come up and engage and say hi.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, have respect. Obviously, if Captain Ross has customers with him, don't barge in. Let him kind of finish up his trip. That's what they're paying for. We always love the comments on the social media and the YouTube and things. Great way for you to interact. Just don't ask dumb questions. You ask dumb questions, you're going to piss him off.
Well, or just when people like, I don't want someone you say something like that, you're not wrong, but I don't want somebody to be fearful or say, I because we get it all the time. Hey, I saw you at the ramp today. I wanted to say something, but I didn't. Please do. But when you say, well, I don't know what a good question is, don't say, what do I do to catch more walleyes?
What
Uh,
color?
what color? Yeah, come on, man. Did you watch anything that we do? But I'm going to tell you a short story about like the things of just people and ultimately, I'm going to handle it swiftly and hardly, as you know. I was in the parking lot and we had a trip, and it was what most people would call tough conditions. Okay, so there's another guide in the parking lot. Also, he's a piece of shit, but nevertheless, my clients don't know that, and I'm going to be professional enough not to tell them, hey, this guy's a scumbag. And so he says, hey, how you doing? He's talking to my clients. Number one, I have literally punched people in the face over that in the past, but we're past 7 years, so we're good. But this guy comes over and he starts talking to my client. I look at the guy, and then he immediately knows I'm gonna eat you up. So then he's like, "Hey, so you guys do any good?" And I said, "We had an okay day," because I was trying to kind of protect him too, if that makes sense. Really, truthfully, boss lady, like because he's got clients sitting there, you know what I mean, and I don't want to like
Yeah.
embarrass him.
Yeah.
And so I was taking the high road, even though this guy's a piece of shit and he does not deserve it whatsoever. And so I told me he had an okay day. Not gonna lie to you, I say that a lot, no matter what, because I'm not gonna. There's no win here. Like there's no coming out of this good. This guy proceeds to now keep in mind a so-called professional, not part-time piece of shit, but he drives back around literally about a foot from my boat and dumps his cooler out and says, "Maybe you guys should have fished with me." This is a while
How,
ago, but
how'd that go?
uh, well, my clients didn't. Fortunately, we have very different variety of clients. I know you've seen some of them, but we have guys that are very timid, and then we have people that will rip your head off. So, um, any rate, my clients started taking fish out, and they said, "Yeah, these are the ones we kept, but we had to let the big ones go." And then this guy's clients was like, "What do you mean the big ones?" Because he just assumed that I didn't do good. And then my clients are showing his clients pictures of fish and literally sell me on the trip, which I would never take another person's clients. I absolutely not only ripped them from him, but I let him know afterwards, and other things that we won't talk about on here that get myself in trouble. But if you're going to be an asshole, I guess when you swing, you better swing hard, because I knocked him out, and I stole his clients, and then I stole clients of his clients. That because he wanted to be an asshole. Because again, what are you doing behind my back if you're doing that in front of my back? So that got around, and then people realized like, hey, be a decent human being. I was trying to be a decent human being to you, but I've had that with people too, where just random people come up to me and they're like, yeah, did you catch anything like this? And it's like, man, be respectful of the situation, especially when I have a, husband and a wife couple or some young kids or something in the boat, and you're, F this and well, hey, you didn't do shit. And it's like, come on. I know I have a potty mouth, but what given the circumstance and the situation, we have to clean things up a little bit, show a little bit of couth, as they say, show a little bit of tact.
Yes, yes. You do exercise that frequently.
One of my buddies there, he says sometimes I can be a chameleon. We can change on a dime. So we'll
Yeah.
leave it at that.
Well, we've been rambling in everybody's ear for a while, and so I kind of want to end it. If you can go there. No, no, no. I want to end it with a
Uh,
good captain story from you. What is something funny,
oh
embarrassing,
my
just a good
god.
story you can share? Because everybody's waiting for you to write the guidebook. So just give us
You,
something.
you put me on the spot. Now I know how my people feel when they choke on a story. Well, I'm gonna tell you.
Yes.
Yes, I'm gonna tell you a story that I told just the other day, and this happened many, many moons ago. But it hasn't changed in how amazing it is. So I have a husband and wife in my boat, and we're fishing a couple days. And one thing I've learned about women in a boat is that I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're 20. I don't care if you're 80. When a woman in a boat says she has to pee, what that actually means is, excuse me, she had to pee like 3 hours ago, and now we're like at moisture excretion um, rapid levels. How about that? I just made that term up. But
Yeah,
any
don't
rate,
make me have to beep too much there.
yeah, thanks. So any rate, uh, this lady's like, I gotta pee. I just looked at her and I was like, you gotta pee. She's like, oh my god, yeah. So I'm not gonna lie to you. The Ranger has many comforts. Facilities is not one of them necessarily. Depending on guys are much easier than women and that whole deal. So I kind of give her the finger as far as one or two. So she says one, so we're already way easier. And so I've got a nice little folding seat, generally speaking, in my Ranger there. And I give her a bucket, and I've got a little rain jacket there up in the console. I say, hey, throw this over your lap. There's nobody around. Me and your husband going to be back here. All good. It's like, okay, okay. So I knew she was peeing because it sounded like a water jet. Okay. I mean, when that was hitting the bucket, it was like a hose, like an industrial 1-inch hose in a bucket. How about that? And so I'm like,
Nice,
oh boy.
nice.
Mm, it's gonna get better before it gets worse. Any rate, so she's doing her thing or whatever, and she like thanks me. And, oh my god, and she's like, so like, has any like buddy ever had? I was like, doing number two, and I was like, yeah. And actually, funny story. We talked about it on the podcast where I had to do a number two this year, wasn't it? Yeah, it was this year. We had a
Yes,
massive,
this year, and it was caught on camera.
yeah, on camera, 360.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, ironic.
With the state. It's not even like yeah.
It's federal. Those are the feds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my ass is famous. Any rate, so she's like, she's kind of like uncomfortable. So I'm like, again, I understand how to play the crowd here a little bit. I was like, I'm going to make her more comfortable. So I was like, well, let me just tell you, everybody pees in the boat, happens every day. But when you got to poop, no, it's a whole different deal. And I was like, see that bucket you're holding? I was like, if you could tell you how many buttholes have seen that thing. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I get a new boat every year, but that bucket my dad gave me, and it's like 30 years old. And it's like literally it is. She's like, oh yeah? I was like, 100%. I've seen a lot of buttholes that bucket. So she's like, oh, okay. So now she's all like comfortable and everything's back. Boom, boom. We go to catching fish. Day's over with. Boop, over. Next day, we go out and we're fishing, and we're fishing spinners. And so it's like, you've got to be, you film some spinner stuff with us. You don't go like, oh, hey, I'll be there when after I finish this email. Like, you got to be on it. And so her husband's on it, and boom, we got a couple of their fish. They're crashing. We got stuff I got to get out of the way so they don't tangle. And she's like, "Oh, I got to do this. I'm like, come here and help us out." She's like, "I'm just so hungry." So we get done, we get a few fish thing, we get things kind of set up, and she's sitting in my front chair, and she has a like 5 pound bag of trail mix from like Costco. Okay. And it might have been like Costco, it's probably 10 pounds. This giant thing, it looked like a loaf of bread. And she's like understanding the situation because people fished with me before. And all of a sudden we get another melee. Like, we got a fish on every rod, and they're crashing in, they're bouncing. So I was like, I need your help back here. I got to help. I need more reelers. I'm getting everything set. And I hear, oh shit. So that bag of trail mix ripped down the sides like you guys have seen with potato chip bags, and it's just now it's useless. Now we're in a boat and like 10 pounds of trail mix, and then she like stumbles, she's and it goes boom, boom, boom. If you can picture this, those of you who fished with me or know what a Ranger like 600 series is, and it like hits the center and goes down, and it just like it's marbles everywhere. But instead of marbles, it's M&Ms, raisins, peanuts, and all this stuff, and it's like blazing hot. The M&Ms and the chocolate, whatever is in there, is like melting into my carpet immediately.
B
Now
Team
keep
Bob's skin is crawling at this
B team
story.
B team Bob would have jumped over. Okay. So it's kind of one of those moments, I guess, like, if you have small kids, you probably can relate to this, people that are listening to this, where it's just like, hey, it's a poopy diaper, or hey, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna scream, or what are we gonna do? It happened. It's over. It's over with. It's not going to change. So we just got to make the best of it. Well, the good part of this is not to drag this out too long, but we got like 4 or 5 fish or something on, right? We got 6 rods out. We got like 4 or 5 fish on. So I was like, well, let's get the fish in. Let's not have two problems. So we're back there, and it's like because we are grinding these now, stepping on this carpet, grinding these peanuts and the raisins and everything right into the carpet. Fortunately, Ranger had snap out carpet, and we can talk about how we dealt with that later, and because of the setup that they had there. But nevertheless, it's everywhere. And so she is like the most apologetic. She is just like she feels as big as a thimble right now. And I look back. I'm like, it's not the end of the world. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. Let's just try to get whatever we can out of this. And she's on her hands and knees. This lady is not a spring chicken. She's on her hands and knees, and she's picking all this stuff up. So she's like, I got it, whatever. So as I'm trying to get lines back in the water, those of you who watch the videos know how it goes. We got nothing there. I got counting fish. I'm doing the whole thing, and I'm staying to stay as far away from the peanuts and the M&Ms and things as I can. And her husband's kind of like trying to do the same thing. So I'm going to say 5 minutes. It felt like longer than that, but I turn around and I just have I saw a ghost, and her husband like looks at me and then we both look at her at the same time again. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. What did I do? What did I do? Because I'm literally looking at this lady like she's a ghost. And she's sitting in the front seat of my boat with that 5 gallon bucket, or it's actually a 4 gallon bucket, I think. Fits underneath that Ranger real nice. And she is eating the trail mix that she picked up out of the bucket. Okay. So her husband like looks at me like, are you kidding me right now? And she looks and she's like, what did I do? And I was like, and her husband's like, you remember when you asked about the bucket yesterday and the buttholes? She's like, yeah. And he said, there's only one white bucket in this boat. She
Oh,
literally was
no.
dry. She was like, when you see these people that are
No,
like,
don't make that
hey,
noise. Don't make the noise.
she was like heaving and like just like trying to make herself throw up. She was just so disgusted that she had found out. And then she looked at me afterwards, and she's like putting her hands on me, like, like you could console someone that just lost a loved one. She's like, please tell me you take this bucket home and wash this every night. And I was like, oh yeah, I bleach it every night. And her husband's like, he ain't cleaned that bucket in 20 years. So
Wow.
that is a little story from the back deck of the Ranger 621.
That's a good one. I think that'll make the guidebook that you'll write eventually someday.
I have a lot of husband and wife stories. Those of you who have fished with me, choo choo, you know what I'm talking about right now. We're gonna leave that one for the book though.
Nice. Nice. Okay. Closing words. Go for it.
Thanks for following along. We've got some really good content coming, but I would encourage you, if listening to this, hopefully this we didn't deter anyone, because that was not the intention at all of commenting and paying attention to what we're doing, following the social medias and things. Actually, it's the opposite. In order to keep bringing this mass amount of content that we do into you, please, this is free at this point, like I said, and it costs me a lot aside from time to do that. So, please help us, I've heard people say, as your mission ticket is to comment comment, is to subscribe, is to share. The big thing right now is sharing. You know, a little arrow there on Instagram. That really helps us. It helps us spend more time and dedicate more stuff towards this. So let us know that you like it by doing those things. And
Yeah, because you
we
don't charge, and it's a lot of free information, so they can pay you by sharing.
I can tell you because we're doing a clinic at the Niagara show, and I can tell you those things are not cheap. We put a lot of time. I was actually working on one of those seminars here after I got off the water today. So uh, yeah, there's a lot of information out there, and again, it is awesome that we have these people at the boat launches. Almost every day, somebody says, "Hey, you taught me this." We were just fishing with a guy. I won't embarrass him by saying anything, but he said, "Hey." He's now a captain. He's taking over a business, and he said, "I learned how to do the walleye fishing from watching your videos." Humbled and appreciative that you put your trust in us and know that we're honest and that we have information of worth. How about that? But again, please help us just by doing little things there. All the time, I even some of my buddies are like, "Oh yeah, I saw that post the other day of the big sailfish." I'm like, "Give us a like and a share, man. It really really does help the way that these algorithms and all the bullshit works here." So we can keep doing all this for you, because again, when we go through these little periods and we don't put a bunch of videos up because we just get crazy going, I don't think people realize 80 to 100 hours a week is very often in my life, and that's a lot. And so when we get these little periods, people are like, where's all the videos at? So absolutely want to put those out, but help me help you, because it doesn't take much on your end, and if you do that, we'll keep pushing it forward for you.
And the podcast is not only on YouTube, but it is also where else?
We got it everywhere. If you can't find it, go to bigwaterfishing.com. We got all the links and things there, but pretty much any of your download things like Spotify, Apple, Amazon. God, we've got them all, I think, linked on our website under the podcast tab. But if you have a download site that you get your podcast from, Big Water, one word, fishing, pretty much you're going to be able to find it there. We link them on most of those. So if you can't find it, you probably can't find walleyes either. You know what I'm saying?
And on that, I think we're done.
Until the next episode.